Kweku and Malik had known each other since they were 9 years old, back when neither of their families had two spare coins to rub together. And 30 years later, Kweku still remembered exactly which street corner they used to wait on for the bus that took them to the one decent school in their district. They built the logistics company together in their late 20s. Malik with the instinct for deals, and Kweku with the patience for operations. And by the time they turned 40, the company moved freight across half the continent, and Malik had become one of those names people recognized from magazine covers he never asked to be on. Kweku stayed mostly out of the spotlight by choice. He liked it that way. It was Kweku who first noticed the change in Malik about 8 months into his relationship with Shanice, a shift so gradual that Malik himself hadn't fully clocked it. Malik had always been generous. That part hadn't changed. But the generosity used to come with warmth attached to it, and lately it felt more like tribute. New watch, new car for her birthday, on top of the one from Christmas. A private jet weekend to Marrakesh that Shanice posted about for a week straight without once mentioning Malik's name in the captions. She calls me babe in front of a camera and something else when she thinks it's off, Malik admitted one night, the two of them sitting on the terrace of his house with drinks neither of them had touched much. I don't even know what that something else is. Distracted maybe. Like I'm a line item. Have you asked her straight out how she'd feel if the money disappeared tomorrow? Kweku said. Malik laughed, but it wasn't a real laugh. You can't ask someone that, they'll just say the right thing. Then don't ask, Kweku said. Show her. The idea sat between them for 2 more weeks before Malik brought it up again, seriously this time. And by then, he'd clearly turned it over enough in his head that the shape of it had already formed. He wanted to disappear, financially, for a little while. Not for real, but real enough that nobody around him, aside from the 2 people he trusted completely, would know it was fake. Halima was the 3rd person, and she didn't love the idea when Malik first laid it out in her office. She'd handled the company's books since the beginning. Back when the books fit on a single spreadsheet, and she knew Malik well enough to push back on him in a way most people at his level of wealth never got pushed back on anymore. You're asking me to falsify financial records, Malik, she said, arms crossed, even temporarily, even for a good reason. That's not nothing. I'm asking you to create a controlled, reversible paper trail that only the 3 of us understand, Malik said. Frozen accounts, a staged dispute over ownership, something that looks from the outside like Kweku pulled off a hostile move and I'm suddenly a man with a name but no money behind it. And if it leaks to the press before you're ready to end it? Then we end it faster than planned, Kweku said. We've thought about the exits. This isn't reckless, Halima. It's careful. We just need someone who can make the numbers hold up if anyone looks closely for a week or 2. Halima agreed eventually, on the condition that everything stayed reversible within 72 hours if things went sideways. And over the following 10 days, she built a set of shell documents convincing enough to survive casual scrutiny. A dispute over shared founding equity, a frozen operating account, a mansion suddenly listed under a holding company Kweku controlled on paper. Malik moved out of the main house and into the guest cottage at the back of the property, driving a borrowed, unremarkable car instead of any of the 3 sitting in his garage, and told everyone who asked that Kweku had found a legal loophole in their original partnership agreement and used it to lock him out of nearly everything. Shanice found out the same afternoon it happened, because Malik told her himself, watching her face carefully while he did it. He'd rehearsed the story in his head a dozen times and still fumbled a little delivering it, which turned out to help rather than hurt, since a stumbling, humiliated man was exactly what the story needed him to look like. He froze everything, Malik said, sitting across from her in the kitchen, the borrowed car keys sitting on the counter between them like evidence. The house is in his name now, on paper. The accounts, too. My lawyer says it could take months to untangle, if it untangles at all. I don't know what I'm going to be able to offer you right now, honestly. Shanice's first reaction wasn't concern. It was calculation, and Malik watched it happen in real time. The quick, involuntary flicker across her face before she composed herself into something resembling sympathy. Months, she repeated. So you're saying we'd need to adjust things for a while? I'm saying I might be starting over, Malik said. I still love you. That part hasn't changed for me. Shanice stood up from the table slowly, smoothing her dress, already reaching for her phone. Malik, I need to think. This is a lot. I have brand partnerships that expect a certain lifestyle from me. You understand that, right? I can't exactly post from a guest cottage and expect people to still care. She left that evening and didn't come back the next day, or the one after that, and when Malik called her 3 days later, she picked up only long enough to tell him, in a voice that had already moved on entirely, that she thought it was best they took some space while he figured things out, a phrase she delivered with the same flatness she might use to end a subscription she no longer wanted. What neither Malik nor Kweku expected was how quickly Shanice pivoted toward Kweku directly. Within a week of the staged breakup, she began appearing at events Kweku attended, always dressed carefully, always positioning herself near him with a warmth she'd never once shown him during the entire 8 months she'd dated his best friend. She messaged him under the guise of concern for Malik, asking how he was holding up, whether the transition had been hard on their friendship, questions that circled every time back toward Kweku's own finances and his plans for the company, now that he apparently controlled it outright. I always thought you were the real brains behind that whole operation, she told him one evening. Cornering him at a charity gala, neither of them had expected the other to attend. Her hand resting lightly on his arm in a way that made Kweku's jaw tighten. Malik got the spotlight, but you're the one who actually understands how to build something and keep it. That's rare. Is it? Kweku said, keeping his voice carefully neutral. I mean it, Shanice said, stepping closer. I know things ended badly with Malik, and I feel awful about that truly, but life moves fast, doesn't it? I'd love to get dinner sometime, just the two of us. I think we understand each other in a way people don't always expect. Kweku excused himself minutes later, went straight to his car, and called Malik before he'd even pulled out of the parking lot, his voice tight with something between disgust and vindication. She just tried to have dinner with me, he said. Not to check on you. Not to ask if you're okay. To have dinner with me. Alone. Less than 2 weeks after telling you she needed space. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Say that again, Malik said finally quietly. She thinks I'm the one with the money now, Malik. She's not grieving losing you. She's recalculating who to attach herself to next. Malik didn't say anything for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice had gone flat in a way Kweku hadn't heard from him in years. Set up the meeting. Whatever she wants, give it to her. I want to see this myself. In the meantime, Halima had been checking in on Malik nearly every day since the fake collapse began, showing up at the guest cottage with groceries, even though he could technically still afford to buy his own, sitting with him some evenings while he worked through the strange, disorienting experience of watching people's behavior shift around him in real time, even though nothing about his actual worth had changed. She never once asked how long the test would run or what it was costing the company to maintain the fiction. She asked how he was sleeping. You look terrible, by the way, she told him one night, setting a container of food on the small kitchen table in the cottage. Whatever this test is doing to Shanice, it's clearly doing something to you too. I keep waiting to feel relieved, Malik admitted. Instead, I mostly just feel stupid. 8 months, Halima. I built a whole future in my head around someone who apparently only wanted the guest list. You're not stupid, Halima said, sitting across from him. You're someone who wanted to believe the best about a person you cared about. That's not the same thing, even if it feels like it right now. Would you have stayed? Malik asked, half joking, half not. If all this were real, if I actually lost everything. Halima didn't answer right away, which told him more than any quick response would have. I've known you since you were sleeping 4 hours a night trying to get this company off the ground with Kweku, eating instant noodles in that terrible first office with the broken air conditioning, she said finally. I liked you before any of this existed. I don't see why losing it would suddenly change that. Malik looked at her for a long moment, something shifting quietly behind his eyes, though neither of them said anything more about it that night. The dinner Kweku arranged with Shanice took place the following week, at a restaurant Kweku picked specifically for its private back room, and Malik sat in a car parked outside with Halima, watching a live stream from a small camera Halima had helped Kweku fit discreetly into his jacket. Shanice arrived dressed to impress, ordering the most expensive bottle on the menu before either of them had even looked at the food, and within 20 minutes of sitting down, she had steered the conversation toward Kweku's plans for expanding the company, how she could see herself being useful to someone building something that big, how she'd always felt she and Kweku had more in common than people realized. I have to be honest with you, Kweku said, setting down his glass. Malik and I aren't actually in a dispute. None of it was real. We staged the whole thing to see how you'd react if the money disappeared. Shanice's face went through the same quick, involuntary flash of calculation Malik had watched days earlier, followed almost immediately by fury. You what? You had me humiliating myself thinking Malik lost everything and it was some kind of test? It was a test you failed within 72 hours of him telling you, Kweku said. You didn't ask if he was okay. You asked about your brand partnerships. And now you're sitting across from me less than 2 weeks later, asking about my expansion plans. Shanice stood up so fast her chair nearly toppled, snatching her bag off the table. This is disgusting, both of you. Manipulating someone's feelings for some kind of experiment. She was still talking as she stormed toward the door, though her outrage sounded considerably less convincing than her earlier warmth had. More wounded pride than genuine hurt. Malik got out of the car as she crossed the parking lot and she stopped short when she saw him, her expression cycling quickly through shock, embarrassment, and then something more defensive. You set this up, she said. You had Kweku lie to me. You left me for a guest cottage and a borrowed car, Shanice, Malik said. Then you tried to have dinner with the man you thought replaced me financially, less than 2 weeks later. I didn't need to set up much. You did the rest yourself. She didn't have an answer for that. She got into her car and left, and within a month, word had spread quietly through their social circle about what happened, not because Malik or Kweku publicized it, but because Shanice herself had told a version of the story to enough people that the real details eventually surfaced anyway, each retelling stripping away a little more of the sympathy she'd hoped to generate for herself. Halima never asked for anything once the accounts were unfrozen and Malik moved back into the main house. She kept coming by anyway, though, and Malik kept finding reasons to ask her to stay for dinner rather than let her head home after reviewing the quarter's numbers. It took him another 2 months to say anything about it directly, sitting on the same terrace where he and Kweku had first talked about testing Shanice in the first place. You offered me groceries and company when you thought I might genuinely have nothing, Malik said. You never once asked what it would mean for you, career-wise, being close to someone who might be starting over from zero. I keep thinking about that. I wasn't thinking about my career, Halima said. I was thinking about my friend, who looked like he hadn't slept properly in a week. I know, Malik said. That's exactly what I keep thinking about. Kweku watched the two of them grow steadily closer over the following year with the particular satisfaction of a man who'd helped orchestrate, however unintentionally, the exact outcome he'd hoped his best friend might eventually find. He never brought up his own brief, uncomfortable brush with Shanice's attention again, beyond one comment he made at Malik and Halima's eventual wedding, raising his glass to note that he'd never been so relieved to be someone's second choice for a dinner date. The room laughed. Halima laughed loudest of all, holding Malik's hand under the table, neither of them needing to explain the joke to anyone who'd been there for the whole strange, elaborate test that had gotten them to that room in the first place.